Hello, and welcome to another segment of Elder Abuse Awareness Virtual Coalition. My name is Elisa Gwilliam, and today I have the pleasure to be talking with the Director of Orange County Office for the Aging, Anne-Marie Maglione, and Professor of Psychology and Director for the Center of Aging and Disability Policy at Mount St. Mary College, Dr. Larry Force. So Anne-Marie, do you want to get us started today?
I'd be delighted. Hello, everyone. It's very nice to see you. Although I always say whenever we do these Zooms, it's sad that the discussion we have to talk about, we're still dealing with elder abuse and how rampant it is. But it's always there, but there seems to be times of the year that it just ramps up a little bit. This is the time of the year. The election is tomorrow. It's open enrollment for older adults. The holidays are coming. The weather's getting colder. People are going to start staying in. Loneliness is going to start kicking in. It's an issue. So we are here to help combat that. We are here to help educate people. And as I look around, I see some very, very smart people that are dedicated to eradicating elder abuse. So I'm really thrilled to be here, and I think you're really going to enjoy this segment. So thank you.
Hi, I'm Dr. Larry Force. I'm Professor of Psychology at Mount St. Mary College, and I run a Center on Aging and Disability Policy with my dear friend and colleague, Jeff Kahana. We're now in season 3, and we're here because of the season 1, we were able to underwrite the cost because of the funding that we had, were able to develop when we were able to assemble people. Season 2 and season 3, a tip of the hat to you, Anne-Marie, and to Steve Newhouse, because of the fact that your belief in this, has really fine-tuned it. We're going to give our website today, thanks to Randy Heller and company, looks completely different than when we started, and he's really a wizard. And we really do appreciate that he's sitting at our table along with Teresa Steffen. With us today is Dr. Jerry Abatiello. Dr. Abatiello, and Anne-Marie, you mentioned something about smart people. Many of us been pounding around together for 30 years, and not only smart people, but people that like each other and like, working together. And we have a lot of fun in working together too, even though this is not a fun topic. But it's one, I think, with our collective skills, we've been able to do an incredible job of being able to highlight it. So Dr. Jerry Abatiello, a nurse practitioner, CEO and founder of Center for Life Journey. Jerry, I've said this to Jerry privately, okay? But I've never seen anybody who's been noted in more eulogies than Jerry. And the reason is because families are so grateful for her presence. She really is an angel at the door. So thank you, Jerry. Along with us is Sharon Mary Cohen, again, a colleague and friend and colleague for 30 plus years. Sharon is the Executive Director of Jewish Family Services in Ulster County. Sharon is somebody you definitely want on your team, but she's not somebody you want knocking on your door, okay? Because she is a tremendous advocate. If you were to look up the word advocate in a dictionary, you would find Sharon's face. She is an untiring advocate. And the other thing is that a lot of agencies will host students, graduate students, interns. It's a benefit for the student. It's a benefit for the agency. Sharon typically doesn't host one student, she hosts 5 or 6 students. And students love working with her and under her because of the fact that she really shows them the real deal, advocacy at its best. Joining us also is Sandy Altman. Sandy Altman, AKA Space Lawyer, okay, is a tremendous, tremendous advocate. He's a Renaissance man, a musician, a writer, an attorney, brilliant. Sandy has added so much to the flavor of what we do. And if you have any concerns or issues or interest in finding out about, aging issues, elder abuse issues, legal issues, how to position yourself, Sandy's definitely the go-to person. Also joining us is Danielle Maglione. Danielle Maglione is the stitcher. She stitches us all together. Okay, and we cannot thank you enough for being present and for the great job that you've done over the course of our seasons. We really do appreciate that. And also, Alyssa was, very kind to do the moderating, but the fact is, in starting off at the beginning, but Alyssa, you add a definite flavor as well to this whole thing with your whole focus on wellness and, and health, because when we talk about elder abuse, typically think about the work that Anne Marie and Sandy and Jerry and Sharon and I do. Typically, people are running towards us when things are not going well in their life, and there's a whole pathology. And one of the things I tell my students is, look, we're looking for long distance runners. We're not looking for sprinters. And the question is, you need to take care of yourself. And one of the things that you've done, Alyssa, with Tim Murphy, who is not here with us today, but is a major component of this team, is, and he's the Director of Adult Protective Services in Orange County, is you've worked with his staff in order to detox, desensitize, help rejuvenate his staff, through the wellness and health components that you have at your Hudson Valley Healing Center. So we're really glad that collectively we're all one voice. The focus today, as Anne Marie said, tomorrow is election day. So the focus today is on the politics and policy of elder abuse awareness. The other thing that Anne Marie said is, it's a change of season. The holidays. It has a tendency to stir up things. One of the things it stirs up is families get together. That's the good part. One of the things it stirs up is families get together. In some cases, that's not the good part.
The good and the bad. You're right.
Good and the bad. Right. The good and the bad. And the reality also is the fact that we're in the Northeast. So this weekend, what are we doing? Changing the clocks. It's going to be darker. It's going to be colder. Okay. People are going to be hibernating. COVID gave us an opportunity to practice how to hibernate. And one of the things that we were able to do during the COVID extreme lockdown quarantine was the fact that we were able to say to people, you don't have to do this alone. And the fact that we're here for you and we're open. Okay. Anne Marie's office. Okay. Tim's office, in Orange County, Sharon in Ulster, Sandy in Orange, and Jerry both in North Carolina and in Dutchess County. So we're available. So what I'd like to do is put it out there, this question of politics and policy, because Anne Marie, I'd like you maybe to start with this question, because one of the things that we talked about is there's been changes. One of the things that's changed in our state is the governorship. One of the things, and now we're lining up for a primary, and all these things will come to be as far as the questions of what's in the best interest of elders. But New York State is one of the few states that does not have mandatory elder abuse reporting. Right. So many of us on this video cast are licensed. And as a result of being licensed in our particular profession, we are mandated child abuse reporters. Many of the states, I think every state except New York, or maybe there's another one, does not have mandated elder abuse reporting. Mm-hmm. So when we talk about politics and policy, where do you see that going now? Or do you see from where you sit and talking with your other AAA area agency on aging directors, this conversation being amplified?
Very much so. We've been talking about it quite a bit, probably the last 5-7 years. And that's exactly it. If you have a child abuse case, you are mandated, CPS is mandated, Child Protective Services, to investigate it. If you have an elder abuse case, you call Adult Protective Services. Tim Murphy is amazing. They go out there, they do an investigation, but they can't mandate anything. So if they find that Mrs. Jones is living with her son and her son is taking all of her money and her son is threatening, if you tell my other siblings that I'm doing this, life is going to be much worse for you. And we suggest, let's try to change your living environment. Let's try to maybe get you a Sandy Altman, an elder abuse attorney that can help you with this. She may say, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to upset the apple cart. I don't want my children to know. I want my son to stop, but I don't want that. That makes it very, very difficult for people because we as professionals can educate and guide. But a lot of times it's really hard because, as we know, the majority of elder abuse cases, at least financial, some physical, is at the hands of a loved one. So a relative, a sibling, a child, they don't necessarily want to do that. We know that elder abuse comes in all types and forms. It's a health issue. So stress is terrible. Loneliness is terrible. We just had something the other day where a lady up in Highland Falls, there was a telemarketer that called her and ended up giving her over giving him over $65,000. This was an educated woman. She was in her late 70s. And we said to her, you know, did you not know? And she said, I knew, but he's the only one that ever called me. So we have to start, in my role, is to advocate at the state level to the politicians to put more funding into providing programs and services and education for elders and their families. And I think everything is 6 degrees of separation. So we're talking about, this is the season that maybe, you know, there's going to be some heightened abuse. It's also caregiving month, and caregivers are absolutely at risk of becoming elder abusers for a variety of reasons. They're burned out. You know, we're hopefully heading out of this pandemic. They don't have a lot of respite. They get frustrated. I love, Elisa, that you provide services to the people that are actually in the field doing this, because we have to worry about them. They get burned out too. So I think we all have to take care of ourselves, but we have to keep moving forward. And that's what, you know, I say everything changes, and scams and abuse also change, and they're getting savvier, and they're getting sneakier, and they're getting more sophisticated. So we have to be one step ahead of them. We have to make sure that we know what's going on. And we have to provide the services, and education is the key. Education, changing policies. Older adults have so much power and they don't always know it. We are the fastest growing population right now, and I'm going to include myself because I'm over 60. We are the fastest growing population. We have to use that power. And if you go to your politician and you say, this is what I want, and I'm going to vote for you, but if you don't do it, I'm voting you out of office, it has a tremendous impact. And that's something that this venue is doing too. We're empowering older adults. Don't think of them as victims, although some are absolutely victims, but you can be a survivor too. And that's what we're looking at. Would you agree with me?
Yeah, I know for a fact that there are some agencies that are using the video cast as in-service training.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, you talk about the idea of education. I mean, I think we've done an incredible job of elevating this discussion, and we were very sensitive even when we started. It wasn't about elder abuse. It was about elder abuse awareness. Okay, to be able to heighten people's perception of what that looks like, because it changes, as you talked about. And one of the things we're going to talk about in the December month is the role of technology in elder abuse awareness, both as a friend and as a foe. So thank you. Sharon, from your perspective as an advocate and the role that you play statewide, when we talk about the politics and policies, what's the temperature from where you sit? What do you see?
What I see is very little has really been done on this whole issue. We are the only state that does not have mandated reporting. All other states do. Some work has been done on the EMDTs. They've now been written into the law.
And can you define, for the benefit of the viewer, can you define that acronym?
Sure, the Elder Multidisciplinary Team, which essentially is made up of professionals who work in the field to address cases of elder abuse, to come together, take a look at the case, and give suggestions on how it may best be handled. In addition to the members who come from the particular community county, we have access to legal services, to a forensic psychiatrist, and to also a forensic accountant to help with the review of the cases. Individuals on these teams include law enforcement, other not-for-profit agencies, the Office of Aging in that county, and Adult Protective Services, among other people who may be interested parties.
So the
I think, if I may,
point that I'd like, just 1 second, Sandy. The point I'd like to make, and then open it up for Sandy's reaction as well, is, we talk about that we're the only state that doesn't have mandated elder abuse reporting. We also talk about how proud we are that we have a platform that reaches local, statewide, and a national audience. In January, the beginning of the year, should we commit to between January and World Elder Abuse Day, which is June 15th, should we commit to some type of action, a call to action, to be able to maybe develop that dialogue, to highlight it, so that maybe there could be this, or not maybe, but there could be this discussion about how do we go about changing this? I mean, we're sitting here talking about the fact that we're the only state. Maybe what we have to do is to energize our resources, our collective resources, to see if we can get that conversation going. Sandy?
I agree with you,
I think-
because can I just say one thing, Sandy, and I'm so sorry. I absolutely agree with you.
I always enjoy everything you say. So go
Thank
ahead.
you. We have to connect the dots. We are the only state that does not have mandated reporting, yet we are the second state in the nation that is an age-friendly state. So we need to put the two together.
Yeah,
Thank
this is, that's a good segue, because what's really true, and it's not only in our state, but also federally, is that focusing on, look, we either we're seniors or hope we will be seniors someday, because the alternatives aren't great. And it's very spotty. In other words, here, you're exactly right, Amory. We have laws, we have all kinds of policies in our state, New York, that favor that favor seniors, and some that just don't. It's the same federally. If you look at the new new laws that are being proposed in Washington, who knows how that's going to go. But there's help for caregivers on the one hand, and then this thing about medical bills, not being able to negotiate drug prices with Medicare. I think that's being left out. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, we're all going to be there sooner or later, and still it just sort of kind of flakes away. Okay, we'll do this, but we won't do that. It's all negotiations. And one thing that's really important, we've talked a lot about empowering seniors, and tomorrow's election day. I'm not sure exactly how long it takes to post this, but it's really important to vote. And also, our legislators, and this is one of the things I try to get out there. Our legislators, they're elected every 2 years, which means essentially they're always campaigning. Okay, so which means that's where the people who may be in power are reachable because they want your vote. And they always look to see, and who's calling, and are we going to help them? Because if we help them, they're going to spread that around. You know, it makes a lot of sense. And some legislators are better than others. Some think we're always going to get elected. They're not always going to get elected. And it's important to empower seniors, or at least, you know, as you said, Anne-Marie, we're the largest, fastest growing segment of the population, which means that we can be empowered, we can do things. And I think it's important, and it's one of the things that we stress here, is that we do have the power. We no reason to give it up. We're powerful individually, we're powerful in a group as well, you know. So people shouldn't think, hey, I'm one person, what's the difference? What's the difference if I vote or not? What's the difference if I call a legislator or not? But it's not true. It's not true, because they have to listen. They have to listen.
You know, and I just want to say this, because I want to segue to Jerry for a second, because Jerry, you're hearing this. You're not a policy maker. You're not looking at it from an agency perspective. But Anne-Marie said, you know, that November is National Caregiver Month.
Right.
And the fact is that there's more opportunity that you know, caregivers will be the vehicle of the delivery of the abuse. But there's also the flip side of that, where the caregivers are really being abused by what's expected of them from the person, because maybe there's cognitive impairment and they don't get a full read. But also, we know how, look, I think all of us have seen families in nursing home parking lots hugging each other. I know I've seen that. But I have also seen families in nursing home parking lots slugging each other, because of the fact that there's concern about who's doing what and how is this done. And there isn't, I know at one point there was a discussion, and it moved away. Should adult children be held financially responsible for the nursing care cost of their parents? That was
you know, from a legal perspective, they're not.
Right.
And one of the things I just want to point out is that people who are caregivers should be very important about what they sign. If someone's going into a nursing home, and so very specifically, there's an admissions agreement and other things. The admissions agreement talks about responsible parties, okay? And so when someone's going into a nursing home and their adult child is signing them in, they'll get a whole ream of papers and, oh yes, it's standard stuff, sign here, sign here. And oh yes, sign it as responsible party. All that means is you have access to your parents' funds to pay in case they don't get Medicaid or whatever. But it doesn't say that. It doesn't say that at all. It says, and if you don't get Medicaid, you know, you're responsible for the money. Okay, so right. I'm going to put that out there every once in a while. I write an article about that to remind people. I always remind my clients, your power of attorney and you're signing something, you sign your parents' name. Or if they say, oh no, you have to sign your own name, you always put power of attorney after that, so it's not you.
Got it.
But I've had clients who've come in and said, oh my God, you know, I'm all of a sudden finding myself responsible for all of this money. Nursing homes around here, $15,000, $16,000 every single month, and you can get saddled with that.
So before you go on, let me go back to Jerry for a second. Jerry, from your perspective as a practitioner, a care practitioner, you're listening to all of this. The other thing is that if we really step back, think about the stress that it produces for us as advocates. I mean, how many times have we had a phone call and hung up and we just can't get that conversation out of our head, or it rattles our world? Maybe some comments from you, Jer.
Well, I was curious because I just got a text from a client about a referral for geriatric psychiatry. And it's so complex, these relationships in aging and in life in general. And I was listening earlier to the conversation about of your friend, Sandy, not your client. And things aren't simple. And part of what I see is, being a resource for who to contact, what doctors make those good assessments, and what does it mean if you have to take certain medication, who's going to monitor it, and the other part is, how people get along. And it's always been odd what people understand about their relationships and what they expect from each other. And there's history that goes on in these relationships that always makes it much more difficult. We will never know what went on beforehand. And I think people's intentions are good, but maybe not always. You bring money into a scenario and things change. But what I see is that, this notion of ageism where, what do you expect? I mean, if someone comes to your house and you're having an episode, I can't imagine what would justify somebody not grabbing a pocketbook, or why somebody would not think about communicating with someone. And yet, so it's not only families, it's us who are medical providers that have to be accountable to what it is that we know and who we can refer to. I'm not sure this is what you're looking for, Larry, but I think that life is very difficult. And in my field, where over the years we've referred to adult protective services, and unless the government empowers them to do something, we won't actually, everybody knows if you refer to adult protective, they can't do much. And then we walk out and they're left in that home with a much more complex situation, because now they'll get threatened in a way that Anne Marie referred to. Mm-hmm. So the notion of how skilled we become and how we make this a collaborative rather than, who's right and who's wrong. We have no sense of that. And so our skills have to be referrals, real investigation, legal action. And that's why I think, being able to, rely on each other is so vital.
And and that's what I think is the beauty of our unified voice, because we each have different skill set. We each represent different agencies or different pathways, but we've come together collectively. Now, Danielle and Alyssa, I have to apologize to you because of the fact that the two of you are not members of the club. Okay, so you're not members of people over the age of 60. The rest of us are. We're very proud. Okay, we're here. We're, as Sandy and I would say, we're aging loudly. But from the two of your perspectives on the outside, okay, and you're still friends and everything, you're just not members of this particular club. From the outside looking in, what's the reaction from the two of you? And Danielle, you want to go first?
Reaction, I would say, like, it is a crazy system and that it should be easier, you would think, especially like different obstacles, and when you're trying to get something done and it's like impossible to get done. I just feel like we should make it easier.
And I think that is powerful advice. Go ahead, Anne-Marie.
And being your mom, the last thing that I would want is for you to have to pay any of my bills when I get old. I don't want you responsible for I'd like you to move in, me to move in with you, but I don't want to be a burden.
Is that the first time you mentioned that?
We have this recorded, Danielle. You might need it when you go to see Sandy about how do you get your mother out of your house?
She
But
finally
I,
kicked me
but I
out.
think we all feel that way. We don't want to be burdens to our children. We don't want to certainly financially burden them, but not emotionally burden them anyway. You know, you think about it, that I was a caregiver for my parents. It was very difficult. And my dad was just a little cream puff. He was wonderful. But I still did my regular life, and it's exhausting. And at the end of the day, I would have never changed it for all the money in the world. But at the time when I was in it, it was very exhausting. And he had guilt. So it's a complex kind of thing. So I think it's good for you, Danielle, to see this and plan your strategy for me.
I will say though,
because mom's coming home, Danielle.
I don't know where you're going, but
Yeah, listen,
you live a very tiny
Before
home.
you go on, Sandy, I just want to hear from Alyssa for a second. Alyssa,
sure.
from your perspective,
Yes, go ahead.
with the focus on health and wellness.
Right. Yeah. So as long as I thought about, all I had to do was worry about how I was going to spend my years in retirement. And now there seems to be so much more to worry about, right? There's so many more things to consider. And like many people who are in their 40s nowadays, there's that thought of, I still have kids at home and yet my parents are on their way home. So how are we all going to live together and work together? And what will healthcare look like as New York State progresses and deals with the elder abuse arena, and as elders age and how many there are on the system? And I know Jerry and I have talked about this. What is the future for people? And how do you plan when there's so much unknown prior to Election Day?
Yeah,
And
if
the age
I could.
is probably a whole nother conversation that we can have.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Sandy?
Yeah, two things. Jerry reminded me of our conversation at the beginning, and I like to sort of give this as an example of what we're dealing with. If I could have a few minutes.
Can I say this to you? Can I say this to you? TikTok, very few minutes. Okay, we all love Sandy. We know this. Give him a microphone. Everybody go. Listen, why doesn't everybody go out to lunch and then we'll come back? No,
Thank you, Larry.
But on a serious note, we have to. I need to wrap this up in about 3 to 5 minutes, and I want to give Sharon.
Okay. So all right. So this is what happened, and I want to give it as an example, but also maybe some answers, because there's all kinds of stuff that goes on that is sort of we're presented with all the time, and this is why this group is so important. But so I got a call from a daughter of a client about 10 minutes before the podcast started, and she she said, I just want to run this by you. I don't know what to do. My mother has dementia. She fell. They called an ambulance, and ambulance came, was going to take her to a hospital here in the county. And on the way, the mother was totally disoriented. She does have dementia, as I mentioned, and they decided to take her to another county, Westchester, on a helicopter, because they thought maybe she had a stroke. And so when the daughter found out about this, of course, they wanted to know what's going on with the mom and where she is. They called the local hospital. Oh, she's not here. And then they called the one in Westchester. They said, oh, we don't have anyone by that name. This went on for hours. And finally, they found out exactly what happened. And, this was hours and hours of panic for the family. And to me, it first occurred to me, if it's a stroke, you got to deal with it right away. Instead they took her to Westchester, which was really crazy. But she wanted this out there so people would realize it and something could be done, because apparently there was no communication between the people. Picked her up, And people took her to Westchester, and she said, "Who can I call? What can I do?" So I said, "I'll bring it up at the podcast, okay?" Because and we want to sort of out there, just so something can be done. So this does, because this is one example. I'm sure it happens a lot.
And I think what you can see from that, and I think as Anne Marie said, we could devote a whole podcast to this, because what you can see from that is how complicated these things are. The good news is she knew to call you. The good news is you, as an advocate and a knowledge-based content advocate, you knew how to access that. So maybe offline we can talk more about that particular case and see if we can be of value. But it's a great example because of the fact it is complicated. I mean, and here the caregiver feels so helpless. But with that, I need to move to summary here, and thank you, Sandy. And what I'd like to do is, Sharon, maybe just some final words.
No problem. Until we as a society stop looking at aging individuals as disposable, we are going to continue to have a very fractured system. I'm sorry, but there is very little or no respect. I'm tired of hearing family members, when you find them with their fingers in the accounts, saying, well, it's going to be mine anyway. Well, it isn't yours now.
Mhm. Right, right.
That's a very good point.
That's a really big one.
You know, and usually, typically what we do see also is that not all family members have equal access to those funds, and somebody's grabbing them, and it turns into
Exactly.
another nightmare.
And
All right, so look, I think at this point, though, unless there's any other summary comments, I think
I have one more comment. And
please.
until we stop this craziness of consolidating hospitals and be like Pac-Man, bigger hospitals like Westchester Medical come in, buy up the smaller ones, affiliate them, and start moving services to Westchester, leaving pretty much nothing in the community, we're going to have major, major problems, especially with seniors.
You know,
And
you bring up
that's a whole nother topic.
right,
Yeah,
and
no, I know.
You bring up a point when years ago I was involved in a discussion about mall developers, and mall developers have a tendency to develop a mall about 7 miles outside of the downtown area and then suck all the commerce out of it.
Yeah.
And then the main streets are empty.
They
But look,
die.
this was very, very good. So at this point,
Just one reminder, vote tomorrow.
vote
Yes.
tomorrow.
And
The,
vote, your vote matters.
Yes, and the next time we get together, which will be in 2 weeks, the theme will be preparing for the holidays. Okay, because of the fact that then we'll be right on the eve of Thanksgiving, Christmas, and Hanukkah. And with
And I
that, I'd
think
like,
the good, the bad, the ugly.
Yeah, that's a very good title for it. The good, the bad, the ugly.
I think I need to invite most of my family members to that discussion as they prepare for the holidays. Alyssa, please.
Absolutely. And in addition to voting tomorrow, we want you to remember that you're not alone and that you can always reach out to New York Connect at 845-615-3710. Right, Anne-Marie?
Yes.
Yes. All right. And thank you so much for joining us today. You've been listening to Elder Abuse Awareness Virtual Coalition. If you want to see this program again, leave a comment or share it with friends. Log on to our website, www.elderabuseawarenessvirtualcoalition.org. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.